The first weapon was probably a rock. No handle, no blade, no moving parts. You picked it up, swung it, and suddenly your weak human fist hit with the weight of the ground itself. But the rock had one serious problem. You still had to get close. Close enough for the animal to bite you. Close enough for another person to hit back. So humans changed the rock. They smashed one stone against another until a sharp edge appeared. Now the same object could cut hide, open flesh, break bone, and carve wood. The hand axe was not just a tool. It was a force multiplier. A person with bare hands was fragile. A person holding sharpened stone could suddenly challenge animals built with claws, horns, and teeth. But the enemy still had the same advantage: distance. A lion did not care how sharp your rock was if it reached you first. So the next great weapon was not sharper. It was longer. Humans attached stone points to wooden shafts and created spears. For the first time, the dangerous part of the weapon could reach the target while your body stayed behind it. A hunter could stand in a group, point several spears outward, and turn a collection of soft, slow humans into something that looked like a giant animal covered in spikes. Then, someone realized the spear did not need to stay in the hand. You could throw it. That changed the fight again. Now the weapon could cross the space between you and the target. The problem was that once you threw it, it was gone. Miss, and you had just donated your weapon to the battlefield. Humans needed something that could strike from a distance, again and again. The answer was the bow. A bow stores the strength of your arms in bent wood, then releases it all at once into an arrow. A small movement sends a sharp point flying faster than any spear a person could throw. The archer no longer had to be stronger than the target. He only had to draw, aim, and release. An animal could be hit before it understood that a human was nearby. A soldier could be killed by someone he could barely see. And this created a new problem for everyone on the receiving end. How do you fight an enemy who can hurt you before you can reach him? The first answer was protection. Thick hides became shields. Wood became walls. Then humans discovered metal, and the arms race accelerated. Copper could be shaped into sharper blades, but copper alone was soft. Mix it with tin, and you get bronze, harder, more durable, and far better for weapons. Bronze axes could bite into wood and shields. Bronze spearheads kept their points. Bronze swords turned a short-cutting tool into a dedicated weapon built for the human body. But bronze was expensive. Copper and tin often came from different places, which meant weapons now depended on mines, trade routes, workshops, and rulers rich enough to control them. A better weapon no longer changed only the warrior. It changed the entire civilization behind him. Armies became organized. Soldiers carried matching shields and spears. Chariots rolled across open ground, giving archers speed, height, and a platform that could strike and escape before infantry caught up. For a while, the chariot was the battlefield's luxury superweapon. It was fast, terrifying, and extremely inconvenient if the ground had rocks. Then iron began replacing bronze. Early iron was not magically superior in every way, but iron ore was far more common. That mattered more. A kingdom that could equip hundreds of soldiers with iron weapons could overwhelm one that armed only a small bronze elite. Weapons were becoming cheaper, and that meant more people could be armed. Iron blades improved. Smiths learned to control carbon and create steel, producing weapons that could be harder, tougher, and sharper. Swords became famous because they looked personal and heroic, but the spear remained the real workhorse. It was cheaper, easier to learn, and gave the soldier reach. Put thousands of spear points together, and you created a wall that could move. But walls of men created literal walls in response. Cities raised thicker fortifications. Gates became heavier. Towers became higher, so weapons grew larger. Battering rams hammered entrances. Catapults threw stones over walls. Torsion engines used twisted rope like giant springs. Later, trebuchets swung long arms and launched rocks heavy enough to crush roofs, shatter masonry, or make everyone inside reconsider the value of urban living. A handheld rock had become a flying boulder. But siege weapons were slow, huge, and almost useless if the enemy attacked while you were still assembling them. Smaller weapons also became more mechanical. The crossbow used a short, powerful bow mounted on a stock. It could be loaded, held ready, and aimed with less continuous effort than a traditional bow. A trained longbowman might shoot faster, but the crossbow made deadly ranged power easier to distribute. That was a recurring pattern. Once a weapon became easier to use, war became easier to scale. Then gunpowder arrived, and the old balance collapsed. At first, it looked almost ridiculous. Early gunpowder weapons were loud, smoky, inaccurate, and sometimes more dangerous to the person firing them than to the target. But they did something bows and swords could not. Gunpowder created expanding gas, and that gas could launch a projectile with enormous force. Put it in a tube, ignite it, and the weapon supplied its own power. The The soldier no longer had to draw a heavy bow or swing harder. Chemistry did the work. Cannons grew large enough to break fortifications that had resisted traditional siege engines. Walls that took decades to build could be battered apart in hours or days. Castles did not disappear overnight, but their old confidence did. Hand cannons became matchlock guns. Matchlocks became flintlocks. Flintlocks became muskets that could be produced in huge numbers and taught to recruits through repetitive drills. They were not perfectly accurate, so armies fired them in lines. One row shot, smoke covered the field, another row stepped forward, and men disappeared behind a wall of lead. Armor became less useful. A knight who had spent years mastering the sword could be killed by a farm boy trained to load, point, and fire. That was not just a new weapon. It was a social insult. Then guns became more accurate. Rifling carved spiral grooves inside the barrel, spinning the bullet so it flew straighter. Breech loading systems let soldiers reload from the rear instead of forcing ammunition down the muzzle. Metal cartridges combined bullet, powder, and primer into one compact unit. Repeating rifles let a person fire several times before reloading. Every improvement removed another pause that had once given the target a chance to survive. But the deadliest change was not one brilliant weapon. It was the factory. Industrial machines produced identical guns, bullets, artillery shells, and replacement parts by the millions. Railways carried them to armies. Telegraphs carried orders. Modern states could feed battles for months or years. When machine guns appeared, one crew could fire more bullets in a minute than a line of musketeers could manage in several volleys. Soldiers still charged as if courage could beat machinery. It could not. Men ran across open ground and were cut down before reaching the other side. The answer was to dig. Trenches spread across the landscape. Then artillery grew more powerful and more accurate, throwing explosive shells far beyond what the crews could see. Barbed wire slowed attackers. Poison gas drifted into trenches and attacked lungs instead of armor. The battlefield became a system designed to punish movement, so armies built machines that could move through it. Tanks wrapped soldiers in armor, mounted guns on tracks, and crawled over trenches. Aircraft first watched from above, then carried machine guns and bombs. War was no longer trapped on the ground. A city far behind the front could now be attacked from the sky. Ships changed too. Wooden hulls became steel. Sails gave way to engines. Cannons became enormous naval guns. Submarines hid beneath the water and attacked without warning. Every part of the planet was becoming reachable. Then rockets removed the pilot from the weapon. A missile could carry explosives across hundreds or thousands of kilometers, guided toward a target by increasingly precise systems. The attacker no longer needed to see the victim, the battlefield, or even the country being hit. Distance. The problem that began with the rock was almost gone. And that brings us to the nuclear bomb. In 1945, a single bomb destroyed much of Hiroshima. 3 days later, another devastated Nagasaki. These weapons did not simply create a larger explosion. They released energy from the nucleus of the atom itself. The blast flattened buildings. Heat burned people at enormous distances. Radiation injured and killed beyond the moment of impact. Then hydrogen bombs made the potential destruction even greater. Humanity had finally built a weapon so powerful that using many of them could threaten the civilization that created them. That is the strangest ending to the story. Every earlier weapon was invented to give its user an advantage, a sharper edge, a longer reach, a faster shot, a stronger wall breaker, a larger explosion. But nuclear weapons pushed advantage into a paradox. If one side launches, the other side may launch back. Victory can mean both sides vanish. The rock made one person more dangerous. The spear made a group more dangerous. The bow killed across a field. The cannon broke cities. The machine gun erased charges. The bomber crossed borders. The missile crossed continents. And the nuclear bomb turned the entire planet into the battlefield. Weapons evolved by putting more distance between the person killing and the person being killed, while increasing the damage that could be done with a single decision. We began by picking up a rock because we were physically weak. We ended by splitting the atom because we became powerful enough to fear ourselves.